Morning everybody, a bit more on my BMW i4 today. We'll be going back to bikes fairly soon. Got some kit reviews to do, but this one about the i4, I'm going to apologise right now for the quality because this is just quick before I go out. It's been quite a significant week in that we have done a fair amount of miles, about 500 miles this week, done a lot of charging. So, having put some figures together, I can give you some of our costs to date. So, at the moment, we are at 1,790 miles, having had the car for about 6 weeks. So, we've done a lot of miles this particular week. So far, we have charged 549 hours, kilowatt hours of charging, and our electricity charge is 20.44 pence per kilowatt hour, which gives us a cost of charging so far of 109 miles. An equivalent cost of diesel, 1,790 miles, given that I paid up here about £1.85, which is about £100 per tank full. 1,700 miles would be about 4 tank fulls, so about £400. So about a third of the cost just for charging. So we're obviously very pleased with that. That will go up in September because we are on a fixed deal signed in September 2021 when we moved here. So we're on a relatively low cost for electricity at the moment. Overall, that gives us 3.2 miles per kilowatt hour as an average. Bear in mind, many of our miles are fairly short journeys. We are getting around about 200 miles range to an 80% charge. That's fairly consistent now. One thing we did find on Friday, I did quite a lot of miles, about 190 miles, which I did on one charge, but I got back with about 15% battery. Now, a lot of that miles was up and down the A9, but it was raining very, very hard, and so the wipers were on the whole time. It was pretty cold. It was about 4 to 6 degrees temperature-wise, so cold and very, very wet. And so miles per kilowatt hour it struggled the whole journey, even though it was consistent 60 miles an hour. That same journey a couple of weeks ago, when it was relatively warm, we did much better, much better. So this week it's been a lot colder and wetter this week, and I've definitely noticed a drop in range on all sorts of journeys. Which then brings me around to the next bit, which is public charging. We have done our first public charge. We went to the Isle of Skye on Friday. So now I see it's quick. I'm confused with days. Thursday was A9. Friday was went to the Isle of Skye. We had a reason for going there to go and collect something we'd ordered a few weeks ago. Another very, very wet day. Hard rain, wipers working the whole time, and it does seem to make a difference to range. If I'm using the wipers all day, that seems to pull out quite a lot of electricity. Overall, that's about a 230 mile round trip for us. So in theory, we can do that on one charge if you take the BMW claim 330. But as I said before, very, very hard rain. We had only charged to 80%. So that remaining 20% I think makes quite a difference, we've found in the past. Anyway, what it did mean we had to do public charging. And when we got there, we had done a couple of things in the morning, so it wasn't quite as pure as it might sound. But I had about 40% battery by the time we got there. It was about 120 miles to Portree. And went to the first charger in the public car park, not working at all. So that was the first thing. We weren't too concerned. There was one down the road at a candle factory, bizarrely, and there's one down in a place called Broadford, which is where we needed to go to. So we decided to skip the one in the candle factory, because they want 10 minutes stuck in a candle factory, and then down to Broadford, which according to Zap Map was working fine. When we got there, it wasn't. When we got there, the charger that I wanted to use was being showed as occupied. We didn't find that out for a little while because I'd looked on the Zap map, said fine, got there, plugged it in, and then we found out something we didn't know, which we needed a separate app from Scottish Charging. So that's another app on my phone. So we spent sort of 20 minutes faffing around, sorting that out, getting payment and whatever. Then followed the app and put it in, and then we couldn't get it out, it wouldn't charge, and that's when we found out there was a fault with it. It was saying it was occupied when it wasn't occupied, so we reported that. So by now we're down to 40 miles of range and about 20% battery, so beginning to think, eek. But looking on Zap Map, loads of chargers. So we went down to the next one, which is just by the Sky Bridge. Very modern, very new charger. Plugged that one in, and wow, that was different. So that was at the Kailikin car park, and we put in 33.217 kilowatt hours, which took me up to 50% battery. It took 30 minutes, about 35 minutes all told, and we went to a place for a cup of coffee and sat there, and that was fine. That was enough to get us home, and it cost me £9.97 for that experience. So that was being charged at, I think, 35 pence per kilowatt hour, something like that, 33 pence per kilowatt hour, plus a charge on top of that for the use of it. So a tenner basically to go 100 miles. And then we got back fine. Again, very, very heavy rain, dark, wet, cold, and so struggled a bit more for range. So, conclusions. Not unhappy. The charger thing, the public charger thing, that's irritating. Having another app, it's just another app on my phone, so I'm not overly bothered. Of course, you find out these things at the time rather than beforehand, even though I'd looked up and thought, what do I need anyway? It doesn't matter. The fact that the first two chargers weren't working, so 2 out of 3 weren't working, is pause for thought. And I have read this, that in Scotland, while there's loads of chargers, an awful lot of them don't work. But actually, when you strip away some of the stress, it was fine. We found chargers that worked. It got what we wanted. We didn't fill it up. We just did what we needed to get home. Got home and then charged again. Certainly, what is really interesting on all this is in all the videos I watched, and I watched a huge number of videos in researching electric cars, and maybe you're doing the same. And there's huge amounts on range tests and proving you can go from John O'Groats to Land's End or whatever on 2 or 3 charges or a short amount. And that informed me that range is an issue. What I can't remember seeing in the hundreds of videos I watched, apart from one guy who had a Porsche Taycan, and he reported this, and he didn't keep his Taycan very long, it was a company car. And another guy, I think, had an Audi, who sort of said cold and wet, it goes down a bit, but actually the impact of cold, wet, doing everything in the winter, how big an impact it has. I always expected an impact. I always expected, because it's quite clear, winter you're going to get lower range, summer you're going to get higher range because it's warmer. But the actual impact of that is quite dramatic. And it does mean then that every journey over 100 miles, I need to plan where I'm going to charge. If it's not a BP Pulse or Ionity charger, which the nearest BP Pulse charger for us was about 60 miles away, so further than I could actually go. So using a public charger network, I need to charge, not just think about one place, but 2 or 3 places in case they're not working, because the apps aren't always up to date. Zap Map isn't always up to date. Zap Map told us that thing was working and it wasn't. So that's quite a big change. I'm not unhappy about it. I still love the car, and home charging is pretty economical overall, even if it goes up. And even though it's going to go up in September, the cost of diesel still, I don't know what's happening where you are, but it's going up here again. It's back up to about 188 a litre. So overall, just learning more lessons really. Winter has a significant effect on battery range. Winter plus rain has an even bigger impact on range. And so range planning has become a much bigger part of our journey planning. So that's it for now. Hope you found that useful, and I'll talk to you soon.